House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has followed through on his threat and barred California Democrats Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell from serving on the House Select Intelligence Committee. McCarthy and his allies claim Schiff and Swalwell have been compromised by past statements and disclosure. They push back against criticisms that the move amounts to political revenge after two Republican members of Congress were barred from serving on committees for violent rhetoric against Democrats last session. Republicans are also considering a vote to keep Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar off the House Foreign Relations Committee for past remarks she has made, but it's unclear if they have the votes to do that. In fact, one Republican who's not in favor of McCarthy's committee fights right now is Indiana Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. She actually voiced her opposition on the floor of the House this morning.
Congress is not a kangaroo court and has proper committees like ethics or judiciary to provide proper due processes to all individuals, whether it's President Trump and Representative Green or President Biden and or Representative Omar. We have to become adults in the room and stop this bread and circuses in Congress.
Well, joining me now is Indiana Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. Congresswoman, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, before I get to that topic, I want to start with the news about Ukraine. So I think some people know that you are of Ukrainian heritage. Is this enough support right now? Do you want to see more? And if so, what's next?
Well, I think thank you for having me. I think, and I've been, trying to push this administration to be more proactive. I think, there is also, no need to all, tell through Twitter and what we stand and how we stand in it. I think it's actually intelligence problem. Maybe we should next time tell where we're going to load the tanks. And I think the other issues with training and everything else, I think we have to really understand. It's been the discussion for months now, and it will be now for months discussion how to do it further. And this crisis can only be de-escalated through providing better and more timely and faster assistance to Ukrainians to stop this insanity, because this war is brutal and terrible. I've been there many times, and a lot of people dying on front lines. Yeah. And I think a lot more people dying if we're not proactive, and it will cost a lot of lives and money too if we are not doing that.
I don't think people realize, and by Sunday I hope to have a better count, but it's my understanding if you count both Russian and Ukrainian military losses plus civilians, we're getting close to 400,000 people who've lost their lives, regardless of which side they're fighting on. I don't think we've seen that kind of death on Europe's soil since World War II.
Yeah, and it's a very serious situation. It escalated further, and unfortunately, only strengths, can force negotiation in this situation and force to get put into the table. And this is not the people that you can be nice.
Let me ask you this: you've been concerned about corruption issues in the country. President Zelensky tried to act quickly after some news about some corrupt ministers, and he fired them all. Is he acting fast enough, number one? And do you think the Ukrainian government is on top of this?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was interesting how my constitutional duty is to have oversight and all of the money spent and communicate to the American people and just question and oversight. And we deal with a country full of infiltration by Russian spies, politics, and companies. It's a very complicated issue. We have very brave people fighting, but governments are not always the best. We have problems, and everyone has problems. And it was interesting for me when I questioned that enforce an issue of an anti-corruption prosecutor, which was stalled by Ukrainian government for over 2 years. So I'm glad that we actually have now mechanism to make sure, because some of the stuff also deter fraud, and we need to make sure, because there is not unlimited amount of money, we make sure that it gets to the right people. So I'm glad to see some things, but ultimately we need to continue pressure and governing it too.
You've been let me move to what's going on in the House of Representatives. You've been very outspoken about this issue regarding Ilhan Omar. Why is that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, it has nothing to do, you know, who is on the other side. You know, I'm not talking about these members, you know, and what they said, what they've done. I'm talking that we cannot have anarchy if we're going to be a constitutional republic, and if we are Republicans go in there and say we're going to protect the rule of law, due process, presumptions of innocence, we cannot go the same, do the other side, and then, you know, turn around and do exactly the same, what we criticize them for. I was sitting in the Judiciary Committee for 2 years. I argued what Democrats were doing was incorrect. Well, 2 rounds doesn't make it right. We will not have then credibility with the American people, and they will not trust us if we don't do the right thing. So for me, it's very strange that we have this crucifixionist public opinion without people be able to make the case. And let me tell you, I have probably day and night differences in my views on most issues with these people, but they're still entitled to due process. We have ethics committee, you have accusation, and they have to make their case. And if they cannot make their case, then, you know, you'll be found guilty, and we decide what kind of, you know, consequences they're going to have. But not to go through this process. This is erosion of values of our republic. We'll become like a dictatorship, and we'll become no different than a lot of other countries where we have to understand even pure democracy. That's why we don't have it. Actually leads to a lot of dictatorship. We have the rule of law of a constitutional republic, and this is underlying principle.
Did you, were you able to make that case to your own colleagues at a conference meeting? And if so, what was the response?
Well, I talked to some members, and I'll be honest with you, you know, a lot of my colleagues are not happy that it's happening, how it's happening. But, you know, we have all different hills to die on, okay? And I truly believe it's not maybe, you know, I know that it's very difficult, but someone who grew up in the dictatorship and understand what it leads to and how many people are dying now and died for our freedoms, I understand what the value of having proper laws and due processes, not anarchists, not dictatorship, and no one has the right to say what is right and wrong. If you don't harm people, you're entitled in your opinion. And we have so much infringement on our First Amendment rights that I am appalled that, you know, people are telling this in committee and then go turn around and have the same way. This is wrong, and I don't think Republicans should be doing that and just being, you know, having these fights and have a circus, continue the circus in Congress.
Do you have a hard stance on the debt ceiling? Do you think this should be something that's negotiated, or do you think it should be done in the budget process?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's sad for me that we've been punting this issue now for years. A lot of our funds are going bankrupt, and no one proposed real policy. You know, we have a lot of talking points. So my duty is make sure that my side, I have not much control of the other side, that my side is actually have some policy in healthcare, monopoly, and subsidizing large special interest groups. It's not, you know, really, you know, something that is going to be resolved until we have a backbone and to push back and say enough is enough. There is so much corruption based on abuse within the system that we as legislators allowed to happen, you know, and we cannot be hypocrites too. We have to be able to propose real legislation and get, you know, the American people on board with us.
Finally, a lot of folks in Indiana are curious. Are you still thinking about running for the U.S. Senate in 2024?
Listen, I'm telling you, I have to decide if I'm going to run for this office again, because it's a great honor, it's a great responsibility. I'll do my best to protect people's rights and not to be afraid to challenge the status quo. I mean, for me, it sounds crazy to be here for 8 more years. I don't know how people spend their lives. People shouldn't be. It should be a tour of duty, you know, that you do for the Republic and then go back and live the laws that you legislated. So I'll keep options open just because I have some people that really want me to consider that. I know the Senate is broken, but I'll have to decide later now and concentrate on making some stuff done.
Well, I'm with you there, and citizen legislators. Very quickly, do you have a preference between Mitch Daniels and Jim Banks if you don't run?
Well, listen, I think it's good. I want to see the competition. Competition vets us, makes us stronger, and really gives us an ability to show, you know, what we've accomplished. I think that debate is very healthy because we need to make sure that people do have real competition in these races. I had very competitive races, and always the best person will win. But I think there is a differences in them, and I think people will be able to see that.
Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, Republican from Indiana, I really enjoyed hearing your perspective and how you view things. Hope to hear from you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Still to come.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.